Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Leading the Way in RVA. My name is Casey Long, and I'll be the host of this podcast. Alongside, I'm the owner of Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting, and excited to go on this journey with each of you. So the purpose of this podcast is to have the opportunity to introduce you to inspiring leaders across the greater Richmond area so that they may inspire you to grow in your own leadership. In addition to that, once you meet these inspiring leaders, we'll also spend time diving into specific hot leadership topics in the hopes of giving you some great tactical tips and things that you can take back and put into practice as you grow yourself as a leader. The structure of these podcasts, so I want to keep them short and sweet. So we'll be coming together typically every 2 weeks for right around 30 minutes. This allows you to get some great information, some inspiration, and some education in a short period of time, whether you're driving to work or going for a walk or working out. My hope is that you'll be able to quickly digest this and get some great information out of it. In the 30 minutes that we spend together every 2 weeks, the first half of the session will typically have a guest, someone that is an inspirational leader here in the greater Richmond area. And we'll take time to get to know our guest and hear their story of how they got to where they are today and the lessons that they learned along the way. And then the latter half of each of our sessions, we'll be diving into a particular leadership topic. We're not going to know what that topic is in advance until the leader shows up. The one thing I've asked the leader to do is come prepared with a topic that we can chew on that latter half of the session. It might be something that they're especially good at or something that they're struggling with, all in the hopes that we can get real about what's going on in the world of being a leader and see what comes out of our conversation. And then what will be fun is at the end of every session, we'll take the last few minutes for our guests to think about who are other leaders in the greater Richmond area that inspire them, all in the hopes that this will be a way to nominate the future guest that we have on this podcast. So that's what you can expect. We'll be coming together every 2 weeks, meeting inspiring leaders and looking into different leadership topics. So today, as the first session, I'm going to be the guest. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story of who I am and how I've gotten to where I am today and lessons learned along the way. And then I'm going to take the last half of our time to dive into some of the foundational, most critical things that I've found over my 20 years in leadership development as being important when it comes to being an effective leader. So with that, I'm excited to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Casey Long. I'm born and raised here in the greater Richmond area. I was born in Midlothian and grew up in the Midlothian area, went to Midlothian High School, and from there went off to college to Mary Baldwin College, now Mary Baldwin University. In my time at Mary Baldwin, I really started to uncover who I was and what I was passionate about. This led me to majoring in business with an emphasis on entrepreneurship, and then also getting a minor in education. And funny enough, I actually followed that path and spent many years working in business, working in education, the combination of the two, and then here today sit as an entrepreneur. So I'll tell you more about how we've gotten to that point. So post-college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I loved business. I knew I loved education, but I wasn't quite sure where to go from there. So I hung around my college town and was waiting tables at a local restaurant. And my parents kept calling me and saying, "Casey, it's time. You got to get a job." I'm the last of 3 girls, so I think they were like, "Come on, one last one to get off of our payroll." And so one day I went into the restaurant, and there in the restaurant was a woman sitting at the bar with a laptop. And at this time, there weren't too many people you would see out with laptops. So I knew that this woman was a professional. And so I went up to her and I said, "What do you do?" And she told me that she worked for a company called Cisco Food Services and that her job was to sell groceries to the restaurants. So I said, "That sounds fun." And next thing you know, I had an interview with the Cisco Food Services of Virginia. And next thing you know, I had my first official job. I was a marketing associate with Cisco Foods. So I spent the next 7 years going into restaurants and hotels and schools and caterers, anywhere that sold groceries, and sold them groceries. So we would sit down and I would take their order on my computer of all the things that they needed and make sure that they got to them in a timely manner. So this was a great opportunity. And this time I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about food. I actually got my a little culinary certificate through University of Richmond during that time. My husband and my kids are thankful for that today. And I learned a lot about leveraging my strengths. So in that time, I learned that I am a people person. I can connect with many, many people. And I learned to be courageous. So I learned that I just needed to go in and introduce myself to people and ask for the business. And that resulted in being quite successful at Cisco. So I won multiple awards for being a top sales rep in the area and really just loved it. But I'll never forget being put into like a high potential leadership program there and having this aha moment of, this is great and I've been successful here, but I don't really feel like I'm making the impact that I want to make. Putting green beans and chicken breast in restaurants isn't really doing it for me. So what I didn't know then that I know now is one of my values was not being met, and that's the value of impact. I'm sure if I dug deep enough, I could have come to the realization that I'm feeding people and that's important, but it just wasn't doing it for me. So I started digging deep and thinking about what would I really want to do. And that's where I realized that I love people and I love helping other people be the best version of themselves while I, alongside them, am becoming the best version of myself. So this led me to start looking at places and ways that I could do that. And it took me into this idea of learning and development. So I looked into doing that at Cisco. There wasn't an opportunity for that. So I started networking, which is what so many of us do when we're trying to figure out something new. And through that process, I was introduced to Northwestern Mutual. So Northwestern Mutual is a long-standing financial services company nationwide. And at the right time, I approached them to come to find out that they were looking for a new head of learning and development for their Virginia office. So with my sales background, I was a good fit. And I went in there, and for 7 years, I always say I have a 7-year itch in all of my jobs, luckily not in my marriage. But 7 years, I was at Northwestern Mutual heading up learning and development. So what that looked like was spending time with brand new financial advisors who were coming in 100% commission to grow their own financial services practice under this umbrella of Northwestern Mutual. And my role was to onboard them and set up all the training for them to understand their new opportunity. And then I started coaching them. So they have a very well thought out sales process that I was educated on and taught how to coach financial advisors on leveraging to build their practice. So I would spend every day meeting with folks who were trying to build their own business, working with them on all the things that they needed to do, from how many phone calls they needed to make, how many people they needed to meet with, how many closes they need to have each week in order to build their practice. And I learned so much in my time at Northwestern, and I'm so thankful for that. I learned so much about what it takes to build a business. I learned so much about just humans and how they might leverage their strengths, how they might realize that what they're doing is not what they're destined to do, and how they then go about and figure out what it is that they really want to do. I would say at Northwestern, I spent just as much time helping these financial advisors build their business as I did helping people realize this wasn't the business for them and what they wanted to actually really do with their lives. So super thankful for that opportunity. And then from Northwestern, I got to the place where I'd really felt like I'd left the impact that I wanted to leave. I'd worked with so many advisors, seen so many of them thrive, started working with leaders and helping them build thriving practices and thriving teams. And I started to get that itch that it was time to do something new. I think I wanted something more expansive, something more challenging. So just like I did before, went out networking, talking to lots of people, and before you know it, after I thought it was never going to come, the opportunity came about to go to Capital One. I had teetered on the idea of, was it time for me to go do my own business? I've always had that entrepreneurial itch. But Capital One called and they wanted me to come head up some leadership development programs. And it felt like the right time and the right thing to do. And I'm so thankful I did. So I spent, once again, the next 7 years at Capital One, started off leading a leadership development program for high potential directors and senior directors. From there, I went on to support specifically the technology organization at Capital One, which was a really big deal because Capital One is really in this transition of becoming a tech company that does banking. So they invest a lot in their technology department. And I had the opportunity to work with so many technologists on how to be a great leader, which was quite challenging. They are subject matter experts in very technical topics. And so helping them continue to maintain their technical expertise while bringing in more emotional intelligence into the work that they did so that they could build thriving teams and be great leaders. It was a great ride. I learned so much. I met so many amazing people, and I'm so thankful for it. Once again, I got that 7-year itch. I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think I just didn't know when, and I didn't know how. It felt scary. But a little over 2 years ago, I was at that point where I'd been at Cisco and where I'd been at Northwestern, where I knew it was time. It was time to do something different. So once again, I dug in deep. I did a lot of reflection to figure out what was missing. What did I need? What did I want? And a big piece of it for me was freedom. I wanted more flexibility in my schedule, more autonomy in making choices about where to go with my expertise. And so that led me to jumping out of Capital One and fully going into my own leadership and development practice. So I built this practice a while ago. I'd always kind of teetered with it during my time at Capital One, but 2 years ago, I made the leap to do it full time. And there's been no looking back. I once again am learning so much through this. I, as the owner of Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting, have come back to where I started, which is business development and really growing my practice through leveraging my strength of loving people and meeting with people and networking. And then leveraging my expertise. So I'm a certified professional coach. I obtained that certification while at Capital One, and that's what I spend my time doing each and every day. So many people don't fully understand what a coach is. So I just want to take a couple minutes to explain that. And then we're going to turn to some of those foundational leadership skills that I've learned over the years. But as a leadership coach, what my role is making space for leaders to take time to meet with an unbiased party, which is their coach, to really help them get clear on who they are, where they're going, how they're showing up, and what they want to do in order to grow and develop themselves and their teams. So I do this through one-on-one coaching where I work with leaders and executives and business owners, typically on a biweekly cadence for an hour, where we have clear objectives that we sit down and we dive into and we really customize their learning approach in those hour-long sessions. As a coach, my role is to listen and ask questions and to hold my coachees accountable. I'm not there so much as a consultant in telling them exactly what to do unless that's something that they ask of me. So I do that individually, and then I do that with teams as well. So we can do one-on-one coaching, or I can work with teams over a period of time to help them as a team get clear on who they are, where they're headed, what they stand for, and how they're going to get there. I've also recently started tapping into working with family-owned businesses, so working with leaders in family-owned businesses as well as teams within family-owned businesses, which, if you can imagine, has its own unique dynamic because you've got brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers working together, which makes it quite unique. So that's a little bit about me, my professional journey. On top of that, I will highlight I've been married to Howie Long, not the football player, but my husband for the past, I believe we're at 17 years. And I'm a mother. So I have a 13, almost 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son and a dog and a cat. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. Like I said, I look forward to going on this journey with you. And now I want to turn and just share with you a couple of the foundational components of leadership that I hope will be practical and something that you can take and put into practice. So, like I said, I've been in leadership development for the last 20 years, whether developing an individual as a leader or working with a team to be the leader in whatever industry they're in. The number one thing I want to make sure that I stress when it comes to leadership is that we are all leaders, every single one of you. Whether you are formally leading or informally leading, you are leading. And at the end of the day, we're all leaders because we're leading ourselves. So we are leading our life and where we're headed. And so oftentimes people ask me, are you a life coach? And I cringe when they say that. But yes, at the end of the day, I might also be a life coach because I work with many individuals on how they want to live their life. But I mainly focus my attention on how they want to lead and how they want to work within a team. So we're all leaders is the number one principle that I want to share. And then the second thing that I want to touch on when it comes to the foundation of leadership is what I call the 3 S's. So effective leaders and effective teams all tend to have deep awareness and deep understanding of the 3 S's. So what are the 3 S's? The 3 S's are strategy, strengths, and style. So when I start working with a leader or working with a team, this is where we're going to start. So strategy. Heard this word a lot at Capital One. They're one of the best at this. And hear this word a lot just in general. So when I say strategy, there is many, many layers to it. But for the foundation, where it starts is with every leader, every team having clarity on what's their mission, what's their vision, and what are their values. So let's tap into that. You have probably walked in somewhere, because a lot of companies have them, and seen this on the walls of organizations. So many large organizations, small organizations have their mission, their vision, and their values on the wall. And what I want you to know, like I said before, is we are all leaders. So you can have your mission, your vision, and your values as an individual. You can have your mission, your vision, and your values for your team. And then an organization can have mission, vision, values. If you work in an organization and you're career disturbed and you're miserable, it's more than likely because your mission, vision, and values is not aligned with the organization's mission, vision, and values. So let's just take a couple minutes to talk about this component of strategy and how you might get clear on what your mission, vision, and values are. So mission is every day. This is your purpose. What are you getting up to do every single day, and for the sake of what? So this is something I've worked on over the years, and it's continually evolving. But at the end of the day, with my business, Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting, we're getting up every single day to support individuals, teams, and organizations in being the best version of themselves for the sake of them reaching their goals and for the sake of them living out fulfilling lives. So that is, when I hit the ground every morning, my mission every day. Vision. So vision is inspirational. Vision is where you're headed, your finish line, where you want to go. This is why you're doing this. What is your goal? And it needs to be something that's inspiring. So vision for me, once again, it has evolved over the years, but vision is to live in a world where people feel fulfilled, where people feel fulfilled in the work that they do, people feel fulfilled in their lives. This is needed. If you look at Gallup Research, which is an organization that does a lot of polling and understanding of people's overall happiness in the workplace, it's like below 50%. I think it's in the 30% of employees are actually engaged in their work right now. And then if you look at the overall happiness continuum in the world, it has a lot of opportunity as well. So this mission and vision are important to me as I want to live in a world where people are fulfilled. Think of what would be possible from a place where people are fulfilled. So we've got mission every day, vision someday, which is inspirational. Probably is not going to happen in my lifetime, but I'm going to do all that I can to make it move in that direction. And then last, and definitely what I find most important, is values. So our values is what we stand for. So these are the pillars of how we operate day in and day out. They're, in a way, our moral compass. So your values, for me, I think 12 years ago, went through a program at the Richmond Chamber where I identified my values. Mine are faith, which you'll hear come up often in our conversations, family, which you'll hear come up often in our conversations, growth, same, you're going to hear all these themes because these are my values, impact, adventure, and fun. I also have many other values, but those are the top 5. So faith, family, impact, growth, adventure, fun. So strategy. This is the foundation of great leadership, whether leading yourself, leading team, leading organization. I'm sure over our sessions, we'll probably dive in more into how you can go about getting clearer on your purpose, your vision, and your values. So that's the first S. The next S is strengths. So our strengths, when we know what our superpowers are, when we know what we're naturally good at, this accelerates our ability to live out our mission and our vision and our values. So strengths are the things that we have just naturally become good at over the years of experience, or just natural God-given talents. So strengths, once we know them, we can aim them towards achieving whatever it is that we want to achieve. So I am a strengths certified coach. Gallup, the organization that I mentioned before, is the sponsor per se of Clifton Strengths. So Don Clifton is the father of positive psychology, and he asked the question, what would be true if we were to focus on what's right with people? And through that and many, many years of research, he developed an assessment called Clifton Strengths. You might have heard it called Strengths Finders. So you can go buy this book in any bookstore. And they have a free assessment in it. And this is a way to figure out what are your natural talents, and then start thinking about how might I use them to accomplish my mission, vision, values. For me personally, my strengths are woo, which is winning others over. This is an influencing strength. Connectedness, which is systems thinking, being able to see the bigger picture of things. Includer, which is making sure everyone feels included, meeting people where they are. Maximizer, which is continually striving to make things better. And then self-assurance, which is being grounded in who I am and what I stand for. So knowing our strengths is key to reaching our goals. And there's so much that we can do with that. The thing I want to stress too is knowing our strengths too helps us understand our blind spots, because when we over-index on things that we're good at, they can end up hindering us more than helping us. All right, so we've done strategy, we've done strengths. What's the last S? So the last S is style. So style, this is getting clear on how you show up in the way that you communicate and connect with other people. We all have our own unique style, and by understanding what our style is and what other people's style is, we're able to build more trust because we know where we're coming from and we know how to adapt and meet people where they're coming from. So there's so many different ways that you can figure out your style when it comes to how you communicate and how you connect with others. You can simply ask people for feedback of, hey, when you communicate with me, when we connect, how do I show up? Or you can look into a variety of assessments. So I think the most common one people hear probably is Myers-Briggs. So Myers-Briggs is a great assessment tool. There are many different ones that have evolved over time that stem out of that. So one of the ones that I use is Insights. Insights Discovery is just a great tool that helps you get clearer on your style. And what it really breaks down to is helping you understand, am I more extroverted or introverted? Am I more of a thinker or am I more of a feeler? And then once we know that, it helps us understand, like, do I need time to process and think and be quiet before I communicate and connect with people? Do I tend to be someone that's just very direct and expressive with the way that I communicate with people? It just really helps you get a better idea of how you show up. So these are the things that I would encourage you to be thinking about is, what is my strategy? What's my mission, my vision, and my values? What are my strengths, my superpowers that I can leverage to live out my mission, my vision, and my values? And then lastly, what's my style? How do I show up? How do others show up? And how might I adapt to better connect and build trust with others? So I hope this was helpful. I really enjoyed the opportunity of getting to share with you a little bit about my story, a little bit about the foundational components of leadership that I've learned over the years. So I'd love for you to just take a moment. It was a lot. And just think about, what's something that you learned today in this short 30 minutes? What's something that you learned? So take a moment, really, right now. Think about it. All right. Now that you got what you learned, what's something you want to do based on this newfound learning? So what's something you're going to experiment with or practice or apply based on what you learned? All right. So you've reflected on what you learned. You've made a commitment to yourself of something you're going to experiment with, practice, apply. So last but not least, as I shared in the beginning when we talked about structure, I've been thinking a lot about who would be a great guest for this podcast. So there will be many to come, but the two that I want to start with, first and foremost, is a dear friend of mine. He's actually married to my best friend, that I've always just been so inspired by, and that's Aaron McClung. And Aaron is currently the Chief Development Officer of Feedmore here in Virginia. So we'll be hearing from Aaron here in a couple weeks. And then the other one is a more recent connection that I've made. She's a fellow mother here in the Midlothian area. And she is the co-founder and CEO of a really cool company called Keva. And so that's Jenny Ball, and I look forward to having her here in the next few weeks as well. Thank you so much. See you soon. Hey listener, if you enjoyed today's session, take a moment and like, subscribe, or comment below. Especially leave a comment of a leader that inspires you here in Richmond that might be a great future guest. Also, if you're finding this session compelling and eager to learn more about yourself and your own leadership, don't hesitate to click into my website listed in the description and schedule a complimentary call. I'd love to learn more about you. Thank you.